Welcome to the Third Side Convo with your host, Bob Phipps. Your panelists today are Adam Mola,
Adewale,
Deborah Lupton, Joe, that can't be right, Joe Boy, and Trin Schlutt. And now, your host, Bob Phipps.
Well, today on the Third Side Convo, we've got an interesting discussion. What makes the backbone of a successful society? Now, as always happens when we come up with a topic to discuss that ought to be something that we need to bring some people together. And what we do is we bring two people from each ideological side together. And under our Uber discourse rules, they're not allowed to bring up the name of any politician, and we don't care about talking about what they said or did. So today we're going to talk about what makes a successful society. Now, one of our peanut gallery hosts, our peanut gallery people, actually mentioned Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and it's fascinating how the two of them tie in. I've been doing a little research on what are the tenets of a successful society, and there are things as far as taking care of everyone, but the hierarchy of needs absolutely is something we want to talk about also. Deb, I know that when I threw this out to you, and I know some other people going, it's a pretty broad subject, but what do you think? And now what we're going to then do is try to come up with some political differences between each side, and also where do we overlap as far as what we believe and what makes a successful society. So Deb, you're on.
Okay, well, I thought this was an interesting question, and you had sent out some thoughts about 10 different topics to include in your thinking. And I think you really have to do a snapshot of whatever society you're looking at, because the hierarchy of what's most important to address, depends on where you are at any given time. Mm-hmm. I really looked at the top 5 as being the economy. In regard to the U.S., we need a strong middle class, and we don't have that. We need business opportunity, and speaking of Maslow's theory, universal access to human essentials, meaning, people have homes, people have places to stay clean, they have food, they have all of those things so they can focus on other parts of life, which is, getting along in business and having jobs and having a family and having a life.
Yeah, trying to get to that top of that pyramid, I guess. Yeah, Trin, right. Trin, what are your opening thoughts as to what makes a society?
Yeah, I think one of the big ones that stands out to me is being, proud of your country. Very simply put, because then you're, if you're proud of the country you live in, you're going to want to look after it, and you're going to want to, do the right things politically, economically, and you'll support it. Whereas, I think that's the main one. Obviously, education. That Deborah mentioned a great point. The health and well-being, and obviously economic stability are huge. But the main one to me that stands out is you must be proud of the country that you're living in.
Okay.
Go live somewhere else.
So kind of which comes first? Ademola, you've lived in more than one country. What do you see as the tenets of a successful society?
From my vantage point, I think when you talk about a successful society, it has to be based on the premise that you love your neighbor as yourself. Show kindness and loving your neighbors. If you love your neighbor, what happens is you work together as a community to enhance each other's life. So to have a successful community, you have to be in an environment where everybody respects each other. They allow each other to thrive without any impediment or obstacle that prevent one subset from coming from, should I say, the ashes or rising from the ashes. You need to have definitely economic empowerment that will allow everybody to have an equal playing field. But the most important one, you have to love your neighbors as you love yourself.
Excellent. Joe Boy.
Well, this is a unique question because I just got thrown into this concept of being on the show. And I'll tell you, when I look at successful societies, there's a lot of different types of governments and a lot of different types of societies that are out there. The most successful I've seen have been those that have been run by a republic or a democratic republic, where you have freedoms, including the freedoms to get the benefit of the fruit of your own labor. And I think that's very important. Having the ability to own land, own your own property, and have access. We don't have the right to have clean air or free water. We don't get it for free. We have the right to pursue happiness. We have the right to pursue business. We have the right to pursue things. So I think having the freedom to pursue and to have access to pursue our goals and wishes and dreams is what makes for a good society, in my opinion.
Excellent. Deb, next thoughts. I mean, is it all, Deb, I guess, is it all about that we have the rights to this, or should this be provided?
Well, some things I think should be provided, and others are things that you get by your own blood, sweat, and tears. But one of the interesting things I thought was this topic of social cohesion, which I think is a huge problem in the U.S. today. Mm-hmm. That we are so fearful of anybody coming in from another culture that it's creating chaos. It's creating political chaos, and it's creating cultural chaos. So we really need to be working on these things, and a lot of them will have ripple effects that affect each other. So looking at what the combination of doing things and how that will help in several different areas, to me, would be a worthwhile exercise if you were really trying to develop a plan for a more effective, happy society.
Yeah, I mean, one of the side views of this show is I'm really trying to keep us from a civil war. And so just, it's like one person at a time or four people at a time, just to get to know each other and start to see what other people are thinking and realize that differences are natural. Trent, I know you've traveled to some other countries. What have you noticed in the travels that you've done?
Well, I was, on that same topic of, kind of being fearful of people coming in. I will say with me traveling, in an instance of people coming in for what Joe Boy was saying, I totally understand it. Because if they're coming from Venezuela, which if you got to imagine, that's a darn long haul coming all the way through Central America, even or if they're just coming from Mexico because it's a bit harder for them down there. They're coming over because America is fucking awesome. And, I'm totally for that if they do it in the right ways. They follow the laws that we have set. Coming through illegally, coming through if they're, here to do some, do bad things, then we can have that conversation. But, I'm all for it.
Bola, you want to say something?
Yeah, it's like, when you look at the global scheme, and if you talk to the academicians, they will tell you that to have a successful society, you have to be able to create conditions that leads to better health for the population, that helps to have a better well-being, resilience of the community and individuals. So we have to put all these together to have a successful society, regardless of people coming here or not. At the end of the day, we are all foreigners in this country. There are people that were here before we came in here. So the idea of people coming in should not be of concern, because we also came in as immigrants. The Indians lived here before we came here. So we are all foreigners. Yeah. So this land does not belong to us. It belongs to them. But we have the privilege of being here. So we should be able to embrace anyone that want to come in here to thrive and to be able to, should I say, benefit themselves and their family.
Okay,
if
Joe?
They're not coming to do bad things. Right.
But we have this mentality that they're coming here to do bad things. If you look at the data out there, most of the bad things that are committed by Americans, not them. So we keep saying the illegals, but no, they're not. If you look at the data, all the crime that's committed are committed by Americans, not them. They come here to work, to do the work that we don't want to do.
I was just talking about the slim percentage of people that are coming into America to do bad things.
Oh, okay.
There obviously are a big percentage of people coming in for what I described originally. They totally have that right. I'm totally for them coming in. Like I'm happy to have them in the country. But if, the borders are open and allows anybody who is a bad person who wants to come in and do bad things the unlimited access, then that's a little bit concerning.
Yeah,
Well,
actually, I
some of the
agree
bad
with you.
things is coming into the country without permission. We've got 10,000 people a month just walking over the border coming in. Do you consider that a bad thing?
Well, you said, correct, doing it the wrong way. Like my wife's a Venezuelan. She came to America when she was 17. She got a track scholarship, and she firmly believes in that they should be doing it the correct way. And they shouldn't be given handouts. And
I got a question for Ms. Lupton. She specifically said there were certain things that people should automatically get. What are those things that the government should give away to Americans or people that live here for free? What are they supposed to? Can we have a list of what they're supposed to have for free?
I think people should be able to eat. I think they should be able to have basic health care.
So free food and free doctors?
Yeah.
Who's going to pay Ademola when he has to work for free?
When he has to work for free?
Yeah, because you're not going to pay him, so who's going to pay him?
Well, you know what? You are paying for a lot of services as it is, and some of these other countries that are higher standard of living and quality in the happiness scale have proven that if you provide this basic level of sustenance, that you get more productivity. You get a happier group of people, and it's not, oh well, gee, I have to work, so I'm not going to give anything to anybody because I have to work, and it's going to be my taxes paying for that. I think it's an issue of the social cohesion that you have to have a sense of responsibility for the whole, as well as a sense of responsibility for yourself and your family.
So if the government gives us free health care and everyone gets to go to the hospital for free, do you think Ademola is going to make a great paycheck?
Yeah.
Ademola, do you think you'll get a great paycheck from the government?
No. So, it's like, it's when you say free, nothing in life is free. Okay? You can't just give handout without something attached to it. There has to be something. I don't get paid. Like, I work in the emergency department, and half of the patient I see can't even pay me. So that's a loss. So if you're running a business and you have half of the patient coming to you, see you, can pay you, and they're expecting free services,
Right.
you're going to shut down. So there has to be a balance here in terms of what are we providing for the society, for the community.
Right.
You can't just say it's a freebie for all. No, it cannot be. There has to be a string attached to it. It's a country that have the right to work. If you have the ability to work, then you should work.
Well, I agree with that. And I think most people agree with that.
So,
This idea that everyone would be a slouched off, bum trying to just live off the government. I don't think people are like that. And that comes down to what I believe that society and individuals, there's always going to be some, but I think the majority of people are wanting to make something of their lives and are willing to work for it.
Okay,
But
well,
you
you
have
said free
other
health care,
countries
now
that-
free food. Can we hear, how do we get the free food? Are the farmers going to work for free too?
Well, you've got food stamps for individuals that are economically disadvantaged. That's free food.
but someone has to pay for that, though.
Well, the government is paying for food stamps. This
But-
idea that
Where do they
everybody
get their money, though? They get their money from us.
By the way, thanks, Moeller, for you paying food stamps. We do appreciate that. I've seen his tax return, trust me. So, well, we're going to have to take a break in a second, but the one thing I wanted to say was what's kind of interesting is we got a little far afield, which is great, but what it sounds like is we might be the most successful country, at least in our hemisphere, or whatever you call it. You know what I mean? In other words, everybody from the Americas seems to want to come here, so I guess that tells us that we are that we are the most successful society, even though, boy, we've got a long way to go, don't we? All right, so we're going to take our break, but first want to make sure that you subscribe on YouTube, and if you're watching this later, go on, thirdsideconvo.com, and we will be right back after a word from our sponsor.
Corona Cigar Company is your one-stop shop for all your cigar needs. Whether that's a brand new humidor, a box of those new cigars you've been waiting for, a top-of-the-line cutter or lighter, a place to enjoy the finest cigars and spirits with friends, or the only cigars grown right here in the Sunshine State, we've got you covered. Come visit one of our retail locations for the ultimate cigar experience. Visit us online at coronacigar.com.
Oak Ridge Gun Range is a family-oriented shooting range that has been in business for over 30 years. They specialize in basic firearm training and offer numerous services such as consignments, gun trades, gunsmithing, and concealed weapon classes. I even got my training for gun safety at Oak Ridge Gun Range. Great customer service, and firearm safety is what they do best. So find out more at oakridgegunrange.com.
As I'm looking at this hierarchy of needs, it actually is interesting. It's kind of, Deb, I understand your point about that some of these things got to be provided for. When you look at I just came back from spending some time in England, and over there, their taxes are so much higher, of course, because they provide for those things. However, I did find out that a lot of people do come over there and get on welfare, and, we certainly discourage that here. I guess the question is, what should the government provide, and what doesn't the government provide? So, Trent, you got some ideas on what government should be providing to give us this successful society?
I guess the access to the means to be able to get out there and do it, make the money to eat the food, to put the roof over our head. And if we're in a position to where we're not able to have that I guess is the tricky part. Where do all those people go, or how do you get out of that, or how much time do you have to
Well,
get
what
out of
about
that?
safety and police and military and stuff like that? Would that be one of the basics that the government handles?
I'd say so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Adamola, what do you see as the most important things that the government should handle?
So I think, to have a successful society, like we have the hierarchy, there are people that do not need the government to do anything for them. And there are some people that are just marginalized, that are just in the borderline, that they can use some help. And if you stratify, just like they have now, based on your income level, if you're at the poverty level, by virtue of your education, background, stuff like that, then those subset of the population should definitely get some kind of assistance. But it should not come as free. There has to be condition attached to it. Okay. You got to work. If you're able to work, you need to work. Then if you're working, and if government is providing you health insurance for your kids and stuff like that, so you can go to work and pay taxes, that's fine. But if you're able to work and just want to sit home and just get the check, then I have a problem with that.
Okay.
So I'll give you an example. I saw a lady a few years ago. She has 3 kids. She's working 2 jobs, but she's getting Medicaid for our kids and getting food stamps.
Okay.
But there's an income limit that you have to be at the poverty threshold. She worked and made $75 more than the income threshold, and she was cut off from the Medicaid and the food stamp. So guess what? She stopped working. She was like, I just want to work and make money so I can take care of my kids. But the system is set up in a way that if you try to work, wants to keep you at that poverty level so you can't get out of it because of those benefits that you get from being at that level. So it's okay for the government to provide those for those people that have needs. With people that make more, pay more in taxes, Right. It's okay to support
which you
people
understand
that.
that. Yeah, you don't have problems.
It's okay.
But why can't they have the same phase-in as it relates to those people where they're still going to get subsistence of something, but it just goes down and down, and it doesn't cut off at some ridiculously low amount?
Exactly. That's the problem, because the structure is set up to keep people marginalized. They want to keep the poor to stay poor, period.
Okay.
The idea that you have a structure set up that if you make $100 more than the poverty level, the benefits that you're getting, I'm going to cut you off. That child care allows you to go to work. You don't have to worry about your child.
You know,
And the
Deb,
more you work,
the Scandinavian countries have always been looked at as successful societies and things like that, even though they're having their challenges now, partly for things like Trent was talking about. Do you see it's because of the fact that they provide for so much, but can that, end up being an issue?
I mean, if you look at it, if you look at the 6 European countries that actually provide free education, okay, they were thriving. For in that situation, we are the only country that will say, you go to college, I'll make you borrow $200,000 in debt, and you're going to pay for the rest of your life. And if you don't pay for it, I'm going to come after you. But a lot of successful country makes it free. So these are something we could provide for our communities. Equal playing field, and allow people to be able to actually say, if I want to go to college, if I want to go to technical institution, if I want to do something that has to do with education to enhance myself, we can make that free to all. We can afford to do that. We spend so much money in other countries to help them that money could be helping our people to build us up.
Now, I agree with him on that one. We do give away a lot of our money to other countries to support their ability so they don't have to have humongous armies because they can just use ours. That's one thing I have a big issue with. As far as for schooling, we already decided that our government was going to provide all the loans. And by providing the loans, they removed the need for banks to be able to compete for loans, which means we have artificially created an automatic demand, which then artificially increased our costs of schools by 28% per year ever since the government started making loans. We did it to ourselves, and we're continuing doing it ourselves until our government can get out of the business of providing loans to everyone, because not everyone has to go to college.
Exactly.
In my opinion.
I agree.
Deb, what do you see as those things that, like I said, the Scandinavian countries, obviously ours is a relatively successful society, even though people would question whether or not it's on the way down. Like with the social cohesion and things, what can the government do in some of those areas? What do you see?
Well, the interesting thing, you commented that, we're still the best. I think America has had, such divisive problems that we haven't yet seen the fallout from some of that. Sticking our head in the ground with our environmental stewardship, acting like there is no, change to the environment, taking monies out of the K-12 system and letting, scam schools start and use the public funds for private schools that don't have any standards whatsoever. Our justice system, human rights, and the corruption is atrocious. So we have some real work to get back on the side of being, I think, one of the top percentile countries as far as our experience as citizens. And that's all citizens, not just the Anglo-Saxon WASP people, which I, of course, am one. But it needs to be for everybody. It needs to be for everybody.
I don't want to beat up Deb, but you just said our education system is now, we have choices now because we have schools where teachers can't get fired because the teachers' unions and the schools can never close because they're guaranteeing their funding. Now, when you have school choice, you have schools that suck that get to close because everyone chose not to go there. When you have private schools that are now allowed to get some public money, which has been awesome here in Florida, it means that my kid gets to go to a better school and we get to choose not to have crappy teachers. We get to choose and say, hey, that school kind of sucks. We don't want that school and let it close, which right now we can't allow schools to close because even if they fail, they still get paid.
And you pilfer all the money out of the public system, and that's what happens. I don't think that if you want to pay for your kids to go to private school, then you pay for your kids to go to private school. I shouldn't have to have my tax money pay for the private school. That's why there is public school and private school.
But your tax money is paying for the crappy public school that nobody wants to go to.
But I'm going to go with Deb on this one, though, because the public schools are not crappy. They were intentionally made crappy by taking resources away from the public school. My wife was a principal of a high school in New York. Sometimes the teacher has to scrape their money together to buy supplies that they're not provided for the public school. And it goes by also by your zip code. If you go to some zip, there was a post on Facebook or YouTube few years ago where a kid from this public school in a different area posted how their school looks like a private school. And a counter to that, a kid from a zip code that's not an affluent zip code posted a video of their school. And you could see the disparity. In this area, the public school looks like a 5-star private school. And the public school on this side does not have any resources. So we
Wouldn't
have
that
a
be partly
problem
because
when
of
our
their
government,
how much they're willing to pay in tax? That school money
but
comes out of
that's
property
not a
taxes.
problem,
If you
though.
live
If
in
you
a
want to
bad area
support
and
the
you don't
public
pay
school, then you
more
got to put
taxes,
money
you
into
don't get
it.
the better
If you
school.
don't put money into it, where the teachers have to use their own money to buy supplies because the government that say they want to support public school put more money on one side of the zip code and no money on the other side. So there's a problem with that. So
But
if
the
you want
zip
to make
code
the
money
public school
comes
better,
from the people in that zip code. They're paying their property taxes that goes to the school. They're not taking money from poor neighborhoods and giving it to wealthy neighborhoods. They're
so you're
just taking
saying
the
that
money from
now
that neighborhood
because you live in a
that
poor
neighborhood.
neighborhood, because you live in a poor neighborhood, you should have a crappy school because your tax base is not good enough. But because I
Correct.
live in an affluent neighborhood, I should have a public school that looks like a private school. Now you wonder why people in that schools wants to get that voucher to go to this school in your side because they're going to subsidize them. But if you put
And
the
they
same
should
money
be
in the
able to get
public
that
school,
voucher. I agree.
but then what happened to that neighborhood? Because that voucher does not cover your tuition 100%. It only covers a percentage of it. So you go there, but you can't afford to pay the rest of it. So that's a problem. So we say voucher, it does not cover 100% of it. It covers like 60% of the tuition. Then you have to come out of pocket for the rest of it. They can't afford to do that. So that's voucher stuff is superficial. Only the middle class that wants to send their kids to private school can afford to do the voucher stuff because they come up with the differences. But people in poverty, they can't do that. And the school in their neighborhood sucks because we're not putting money into it.
All right, we're going to, believe it or not, have to, the time is going really fast. We're going to have to take our next break here. And what's funny is, Deb, what I was saying earlier was, that we seem to be the one that the country is just, the people are still coming here. But what have we got to do to our country? And that's what we're going to try to end with in the last segment. So we're going to talk about what needs to be done. We'll be right back.
Aw, Dad, my computer's slow again and I can't play my games.
Call Your Computer Solutions today, and we will scan for viruses and clean that computer up remotely and make it fast again. Our phone number is 407-826-0810.
Thanks, Dad. My computer's fast again. Now I can do my homework. Thanks for calling Your Computer Solutions at 407-826-0810. The Tri-Beer Show would like to thank Boggy Creek Airboat Adventures for being one of our sponsors. I got to go on an airboat and saw a real gator. I even got to go to the gem mine and mine for some gems. We ate a steak dinner at the restaurant and even got some gator bites. If you want to have a blast with the entire family, I suggest you go to www.bcairboats.com right now. Get your tickets today. The website again is bcairboats.com.
All right, as we try to wrap up to this successful society, it sounds like there's a lot that makes it up. We've certainly come up with some ideas that need to be discussed. So what we're going to be is, for each of the ones, we're going to go around and you're going to be on a 30-second hourglass for what your final thoughts on what we need to do to have a more successful society. So we're going to go on and start with Deb again. So, Deb, you're on the clock.
Okay. The economy in the U.S., we need to have a middle class. It is imperative, else our system will break down. What do we do to enhance the middle class so people don't have to spend their entire life working for just making ends meet? We need to get rid of corruption that we have that has just blossomed in all levels of government. We're supposed to be able to trust our government and our judiciary. I don't know a lot of people that do. We need to be environmental stewards because none of this is going to matter when the world just totally flips out because of all the pollution that we've been causing. Finally, education is the key to creating potential. We absolutely should have mandatory kindergarten.
All right, that's it. That's your 30. Okay, excellent points. Trin.
Yeah, I 100% agree with the middle class side of that, and I will, segment that with everyone, having to trust the government, and then from that they will be, a proud American. They'll be proud to be an American because they trust their government and they believe in the middle class, and then with that will come, more pay for the teachers so that education is better, and then the next generation of kids are educated in a more unique way than right now, I guess.
Perfect. All right, Adamola.
Yeah, I think there has to be economic justice. You cannot have disparity in the amount of money you spend on one side and the other side. You have to level the playing field to give everybody equal opportunity to thrive. I don't care about the government. You can't trust the government. If you're waiting for the government to do something for you, then you're screwed. So to give you the possibility to do it yourself, there are some basic things the government need to provide for us: good road, electricity, and all that stuff. But the rest of it, you should be able to do it yourself. But to have the ability to do that, that's what's important.
Excellent. Joe Boy, take us home.
I think we need to stop feeling like victims. Stop feeling we're owed something. Stop being told maybe it'll be given to me. Instead, teach our youth, teach our kids, go get it. Go out there and do things. We already have the right to pursue happiness. You just have to choose what your happiness is and go after it, and stop assuming everyone else is going to be in charge of it and blaming other people for it. You can do it. It's really that easy of reaching out and touching it. Do we need a better middle class? Sure. But we have to guide that ourselves.
Well, thank you so much, Joe Boy. Another incredible show, and certainly we've come out with a bunch of topics we need to talk about individually. Deb, Adamola, Joe Boy, and Tren, thank you so much for being here today, and we will see you on the next Third Side Convo.